Welcome to the Contractor Counsel Podcast.
Welcome to the Contractor Counsel Podcast with Joshua Irvine of Irvine Legal. Joshua is a Utah business and tax attorney who serves as outside general counsel to construction and trades companies, helping owners manage contracts, collections, liens, and financial systems. I'm Lisa Mosby, your host, and today we're talking about bookkeeping systems. Construction companies actually need these. Why clean financial records matter, how job costing affects profitability, and where poor record keeping creates legal and tax exposure. Welcome back, Joshua. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Thanks, me too.
Many construction owners focus on projects and production first. At what point does bookkeeping stop being administrative and start becoming a risk issue?
Yeah, it's a tough situation for a lot of companies because they realize that they let it go too long, usually when it's too late. But in my experience, the bookkeeping is really the check engine light or the fuel empty light on your car. And if you're not managing these things the right way, you're going to find yourself running out of gas before you get to your business destination.
And we've heard the term clean financials. What does clean financials mean in the context of a construction company?
Oh, well, yeah, I guess if you will get as many opinions as people that you ask, for sure. But in my mind, clean financials are records of the company that will actually outline what our business expenses, what our business sources of income. A lot of times, unfortunately, that there are business owners who like to use their business as their personal slush fund, as somehow it's, a write-off for everything. And it can create some really messy financials because they're not accurate pictures of the business. It's an accurate picture of the business owner, maybe. And trying to separate those things in a disciplined way can sometimes be hard.
I remember a summer working for my dad's company. He was a pipe fitter, and job costing. I had to learn job costing and inventory. How does job costing tie directly into contract performance and profitability?
Yeah, and let me just step back and just kind of define job costing a little bit because some contractors don't use it. So job costing is essentially breaking down each individual job and in their component parts for income and expenses, which all flow back up to the main company. You're not going to ever really report job costing on your tax return, which is unfortunately the limitation that a lot of business owners view their financials through. And so if you can understand kind of what it is, then you can kind of, I think, guess why it may or may not be helpful. So, for example, if you charge in what's called cost plus for a contractor, it means that you're charging the expense or the cost of the job, and you're going to charge a premium on top of that. That's your plus. That's how you make your profit. If you don't have books that are clean enough to do job costing, then it's going to be really difficult when somebody tries to argue with you about how much they actually owe, because you can't really separate out how much the expenses really were because you just put everything on your business credit card. You don't go through the process of separating things out. This also comes up on the insurance side of things. When an insurance policy is written, it's often written based on the kind of risk and the kind of work you do. From time to time, a job might require that you have an extension or a higher policy or an extra provision, which could be an additional expense on your policy. And it's going to be based on how much money and risk is associated with that. If you don't have job costing in that situation, your insurance provider might not be able to give you the best deal because all they can look at is your total numbers, which might not be accurate to that specific risk.
And Joshua, where do you typically see gaps in record keeping that later create problems during disputes, audits, or collections?
Yes. The short answer is, especially when you do complicated billing for clients, or you do time and materials, which means how many hours and what kind of materials are being spent. If, again, it just comes down to how organized you are. the disputes come up, and this isn't unique to contractors or to the construction industry, but the disputes come up when there is something that's ambiguous about what they're being charged and why. All of us want to pay as little as possible for as good of an outcome, but that doesn't always work perfectly. And when there are disputes or misunderstandings, it often comes down to this issue. So my clients that have struggled with collecting all their money, usually it comes down at its core to the way in which things were billed, the way in which things were accounted for. Maybe it sounds silly, but that's really a simple fix. If you had better bookkeeping skills, then you'd be able to handle this better. And part of that might be that you need to hire someone to do it. Maybe not in your company. Maybe you need to hire a third party. Maybe you've had good and bad experiences with that, which is why you don't want to. But very rarely, I can think of probably only a couple contractors that I know actually have the numbers and the skills accounting wise to do their own books the right way. Everybody else either fakes it, tries to, or hopes for the best when the IRS comes knocking, and in the meantime just holds their breath.
Not an appropriate business strategy at all. I want you to speak to the idea that poor bookkeeping can weaken a contractor's position when enforcing contracts or filing liens.
Well, one of the main things as far as a lien goes, you have to be able to back up the amount that you're claiming. Like on the lien itself, you have to say down to the penny how much is owed on this job. You might be able to say, well, I created an invoice for a certain amount. Well, the first thing the other side's going to dispute is the dollar amount itself. And then they're going to obviously argue about other things. But if you can't objectively back up your dollar amounts, you're going to have a problem if you ever have to enforce it. The other side is just simply as a business owner and running your company, if you don't have good bookkeeping, you won't be able to pull financial reports. And if you can't pull reports, you can't look at them. And if you can't look at them, you can't understand them and then make decisions for your business based on that kind of information. Unfortunately, a lot of my clients have admitted that whether they like it or not, they kind of tend to be more of a business bank account books kind of a company, which means if there's money in the business bank account, then there's money in their business. And so it's just not the case. It's not reality. It's not even what grandma taught us years ago about keeping a checkbook. Businesses need to have these kinds of things organized because your insurance rates are based on it. Your billing is based on it. Your liens are based on it. Your ability to hire people and know how much you can pay them is based on it. Like if you're just winging it, good luck. But I bet you're going to run into some problems.
Your inventory is based on it. Your tax planning is based on it. My brain, you got the wheels turning in there, Joshua.
Yeah.
From a tax planning standpoint, what decisions become harder or more expensive when the numbers aren't reliable?
Well, you can't do it at all. That's the problem. You can't tax plan at all. I've had clients reach out to me to do their taxes, and I'm happy to do that. But then I say, great, send me over a copy of your, what I consider to be pretty basic financial report. Send me over your P&L, your profit and loss. Send me over your balance sheet. Send me over your tax return from the prior year, and maybe even your cash flow statement if I'm really feeling excited. But those two or three things, I just get deer in the headlights look. And they're like, I don't know what that is. I don't know how to get it for you. And then I get a pause and say, well, I can't plan if we don't have numbers. And so those numbers are what we ultimately flow into tax returns later. So if you do have those numbers, you should be kind of, in my opinion, and again, maybe this is biased, but in my opinion, once or twice a year, at least as a business, you should be talking to whoever helps you with your taxes, and whoever helps you with your books. You should be checking on that one probably at least once a month, if not more, to make sure that those things are being done the right way, so that when you as a business owner need to make decisions, need to sit down and plan for the future, for growth, for big expenses, for whatever's coming, that you're able to do that predictably and with confidence because you've spent time and energy making sure your books are clean and organized.
We see businesses get in trouble all the time with the IRS because they haven't planned for that or paid their estimates. What systems should a construction company have in place to track job level performance consistently and make sure that they get their taxes paid?
Well, I mean, the first thing obviously is you start with good books. The good books also is about good bookkeeping, meaning billing and invoicing and collections processes. You have to have all those things to make sure the income is there. And then you kind of have a team. I don't care if that team's in-house. I don't care if the team is a third party that's outsourced. You just need to have the right team. There's this book that I really enjoy, and it's a silly book, but it's called The Energy Bus. And it's all about one, or at least one of the takeaways is making sure that the right people are in the right seats on the bus. There's a couple other books that kind of probably carry that theme forward as well. But, being able to do that is probably sounds easy, but it's not always easy. And so making sure that whoever does your books understands how to do them for your company, for your industry is going to be important as well. So that it's not just being done and we kind of as business owners ignore it, but it's actually being done right. So that when it comes to me or somebody else who's doing tax stuff, we can look at it and say, okay, now this is reliable because all these things are in the right places. When those things are being done the right way, then you can plan, you can make estimations, you can pay taxes, you can put money aside. There's lots of systems for how to do that. Maybe it's part of a job, maybe it's part of a monthly thing, maybe you pay estimated, maybe you don't. Like there's a million different strategies, but the reality is it has to be a strategy, because if it's not a strategy, then you're just hoping for the best, song and a prayer. And I hope it works out, but it's just not usually been my experience that that's the case.
I got a picture of a dartboard in my head and throwing darts at that, trying to figure it out. I like to bring this home for our audience, usually an example. And I'm wondering if you can share an example of a situation where better financial visibility changed the outcome for a contractor.
Sure. I'll give an example. This actually was, when we're recording this, we're wrapping up tax season right now for last year. So I could even think of a client who came to me to help them with their books and their taxes, because we're nerds and we like to do that stuff. But why they came to me is because they knew me in the construction space, and they'd known me for years, but they were using somebody else to help them with their books and their taxes. And they just kind of kept getting this feeling like that, like almost that tax filer was working for the IRS rather than with them, because they never felt like they got strategies. They never felt like they got ideas or suggestions. And there's a big difference between somebody who will plan with you and then somebody who will just file for you. And we sat down and were able to go through some different planning options and some strategies and come up with a way to save them over $100,000 in taxes. Now, if they had gone with the first one, it would have been filed properly, it would have been filed on time, and they would have paid a whole bunch in taxes that they didn't have to. Now, that doesn't mean that that's going to be the same for everybody's situation, but that's really what we leave on the table when we are unwilling to organize our books throughout the year. We're unwilling to pay to have somebody be our planner with us throughout the year. Then it's not like you're not paying for that stuff somehow. You usually just pay a lot more in taxes. You'll pay for it somewhere. You can pay for it to plan better, or you can pay a whole lot more to pay more in taxes. So that's actually, unfortunately, more common with a lot of contractors, because it's just one more thing that a lot of them don't have the time to deal with. So they just do what they've always done, which is just tell me how much I owe. And by the time they're thinking about that, the year is over and it's too late to plan anyway. So I just hope that people would just plan ahead a little bit and be a little bit more proactive. And I think that they'd have a lot better outcomes.
we've used a few little cliches or acronyms in this episode, and one that comes to mind for me is nobody cares about your money more than you do. And if you have a bookkeeper, you'll know where your money is, and the tax savings alone will help pay for that position in many cases. So that's a great analogy. Thank you so much for that one. For an owner who knows their bookkeeping needs improvement, but they feel a little behind, what is a realistic step towards building a more disciplined financial system look like for them?
The first is probably to go back and figure out, do you have the right person working on that task? If that person is trained as a bookkeeper, if that person has a tax background, or not, right? Or is it just an admin person that you've just thrown another admin thing on their plate without actually training them on how to do it? Because maybe you don't know how to do it. And so the first step is to make sure you have the right kind of person or the right kind of training to be able to handle that task. And then the second, as a business owner, and this is probably more important, is to just get educated yourself about what it's supposed to look like. What are the deliverables I should be expecting? What does a profit and loss statement mean, and how do I understand it, and how does it help me make decisions as a business owner? If you don't have that kind of perspective, it's not that much different than going to a homeowner and building them a house and saying the job's done, and they had no clue what it was even supposed to look like. You didn't even have plans set up, so there was no way to know until the wind came and blew it all over that it was done completely wrong. So knowing what you're supposed to get out of bookkeeping and knowing how those things are supposed to help you is really a vital tool as a business owner. I think you have that responsibility to educate yourself or to talk to other business owners so that you know what to look for. And even if you don't know how to do bookkeeping yourself, you don't have to, but you do need to know what it's supposed to be and how it's supposed to help you in your own business.
Joshua, thanks so much for your insights today, and thank you for shining some light on systems and strategies for better bookkeeping.
Thank you.
That's it for today's episode of the Contractor Counsel Podcast. If you're a construction or trades business owner in Utah and want more structure around your financial systems, contracts, or tax planning, you can learn more about Joshua and Irvine Legal at irvine-legal.com. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to the show, and share this episode with another contractor who could benefit. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.